Hey everyone, welcome to That Pedal Show. Dan here.
Mick here, hello. Okay, slight different from our normal presentation. Our normal videos are pretty long. Hello to all our regular viewers, by the way.
This will only be mediumly long.
Yeah. This is for those of you who maybe are just beginning your pedal journey, or maybe you've been playing a bit longer but you haven't really delved into the world of pedals. We wanted to offer some thoughts on your first 3 guitar effects pedals.
Yeah, it can sometimes be a bit daunting with everything that's out there, and when you're first getting into it, it's like, oh man, where do I start? So yeah, just some ideas that you might want to check out to, you know, get a handle on what's going on.
To get going. And next week's video is your next 3 guitar effects pedals.
You thought this video was long. Wait till next week.
We've started with 3 common guitar effects types. One is what we call gain, which is overdrive distortion.
Indeed.
One is modulation, which includes...
So chorus, phaser, flanger, tremolos, a rotary speaker, those sorts of things. Things that'll take your sound and just move it around a little bit, give you a bit of wobble.
Yeah, more of which next week. And we've also chosen a time-based effect, which in this case is delay. The other famous one is reverb. Again, more of which next week. Now, these are arbitrary choices. We've chosen 1 gain stage, overdrive pedal, 1 time-based, delay, and 1 modulation, which is tremolo. Also important to say at this point that the specific pedals that we've chosen are less important than the effects types themselves. So there's... How many overdrive pedals do you own?
Really? Oh man, it's more than 100. I'm embarrassed to say.
Yeah, I'm at least halfway there on that. So there are many different types. Really, this is about the principles. We'll also explain that when you combine them, you can get some pretty cool sounds, hopefully, as you heard over the intro. Without further ado, then, overdrive. What's great about overdrive, Dan?
Overdrive is probably the first effect you're ever going to buy. If we think back to the classic sounds of rock and roll, where the amps were distorted, the amps would turn up so loud they were distorting, and they created the sound that changed the world, right? And it's a sound that a lot of us connected with. What the overdrive pedal does is it emulates that sound, the way that the amp breaks up. It gives us the ability to have a flavour of that, but at decent volumes.
Yeah, so what we'll do, we'll kick off by, you'll hear the clean sound of the amplifier. This is a Fender Deluxe Reverb. It's a straight up and down valve amp. Doesn't really matter what amp you're using for any of these experiments. This one's set fairly clean, so it's not colouring the sound too much. Again, if you're using a fairly clean sound, you're going to get similar results to what we're getting here. What I'll do is we'll start off with low overdrive, we'll go into heavy overdrive, and then we'll sort of revisit with some ideas where you might hear that kind of thing.
Yeah, great.
Go for it, Dan.
Okay, so clean amplifier. So the gain is just on, right? We're just clipping. Now as Mick turns the drive knob up, you'll hear the guitar become more distorted.
All overdrive pedals will sound slightly different, but they all do a version of that.
Yeah.
They start off with less overdrive, get more overdrive. Where you're going to hear less overdrive, so I don't know, think back to 50s and 60s blues and pop. Let's just try that a sec. Similarly, in the old like 60s type pop, you would have a little bit of natural overdrive from the amp.
Yeah.
So if you turned it down even more, I'm going to turn some reverb on in the amp as well. Here's another effect just to muddy the waters. I do like the sound of reverb.
It can be challenging to play without a bit of that space around the note, yeah.
Just a bit of edge around the note.
Yeah. It's important to note that the drive control, or the commonly referred to as the gain control and lots of other pedals, controls the amount of distortion that's happening in the pedal. You'll notice that with the low gain sounds, Mick still has plenty of dynamic on his guitar. So when he plays lightly, things can get quiet. When you pick harder, you still get a volume change. So we'll just hear that for a sec.
And you can hear, as he turns the overdrive up, we get into rock territory.
We do. What happens with the more distortion, you lose a bit of that pick dynamic. The sound is basically getting more squashed. Yeah. So there will be a range of sounds just with a gain control, from a nice dynamic bit of edgy thing to quite a heavily distorted sound.
Yeah, and of course the benefit of losing that dynamic on the front of the note. So you hit the front of the note, it's really loud, and then it tails off quite quickly. Mm-hmm. With the overdrive, you lose that big thing on the front of the note, but what you then get, of course, is sustain. So if what you want to do is hold single notes, a little bit more overdrive. Here you go. This is super basic, but if you just play a single note, and because of the nature of this guitar, we're also going into harmonic feedback there, which is the other great thing about overdrive. So there you go, from right clean all the way through to heavy rock kind of sounds. Mm-hmm. An overdrive pedal is the kind of place to start, isn't it?
Absolutely.
We didn't mess at all with the EQ, so the middle pot on that pedal there is called spectrum. That would affect the relative bass, treble and mid frequencies. And the more you tweak those, the more you can kind of tailor those sounds to the genre that you're playing in. So
yeah, and also to the amp that you're using. You might have a very bright amp. When you stick on the overdrive, you want to warm things up a little bit, so you might tame a little bit of that top end. Or you might have a really warm amp, and when you put the overdrive on, you want a bit more bite.
Yeah.
So very handy control to have.
And if you want to go more deeply into any of that, we've done loads of longer videos on overdrive pedals in the past where we get crazy tweaky about stuff, so you can really delve deep.
Okay, so moving on from there, probably the second pedal I bought was a delay pedal. It's basically, it takes your sound and repeats it. How long that repeat is, how many times that sound is repeated, and the tone of that repeat is basically what gives you the character of your delay.
Yeah, and it's the same with overdrive. Delay or echo, you might hear it referred to as echo there, the same thing. We tend to use the word echo when it's short repeats and delay when it's longer, but they are the same thing. You'll hear that on music from the 50s, well, before that, because you would get natural delay, but specifically made delays, you'll hear it from the 50s forward. And it's in everything. It's in rock and roll, it's in pop, it's in everything. Here's some examples of the kind of things you can expect. Now, a simple delay pedal, next week's video we'll put a more complex one on. Usually we'll have 3 controls. One is the delay level, so how loud your repeats are. 2 is the number of repeats. And 3 is the delay time.
Yes.
Let's have a look at that, Dan. So I'm going to set up a sound that has 1 repeat.
Yep.
So you play 1 note, it gives you 1 back.
Yeah. And where this was used a lot is with shorter delay times, and we get something we call slapback. So I'll turn the delay time down and we'll get Mick to play some rock and roll-y type shenanigans. It's such a cool sound.
It's such a cool sound. You can go even shorter than that, which you'd get doubling delays, which is quite a unique sound. I don't know how short this one goes down, but try.
Pretty short.
I'll put some overdrive on as well. Very nice. And that's to say that when you get your first delay pedal, the inclination is to just whack the delay time up. And sometimes we forget those really short delay times. They can be really cool. So try them out. Where that's particularly useful is if you're playing a solo and you want to just punch out.
Yeah. Yeah. That sort of doubling nature of that really quick delay just helps throw your sound forward a little bit. It's really, really great.
Yeah. Something done in many classic recordings, double tracking, all of that. If we then get into the longer delays, I'll set up a slightly longer delay with more than 1 repeat.
Yes.
This is where it starts to get more difficult because as the delays get longer and more prominent, you have to play in time with them. Who would we look at for people like that? So some of the early 60s pop music, bands like the Shadows and the Ventures and stuff like that. Shadows especially, that very creative use of rhythmic delay patterns. Coming forward from there, who do we think of? The Edge from U2.
Yep.
Very creative use of specific delay patterns.
Yep.
However, if you're just getting into delay and just getting used to it, the rule of thumb, and these are always generalizations, is the shorter your delay time, the louder you can afford to have the repeat.
Right.
The longer your delay time, you might just want to turn the repeat volume down a bit. So if I max out the repeats now,
Yep.
what I'm going to do is turn the level, the volume of the repeated sound down really low. Dan's going to play some stuff, and it can be quite a nice bed
Yeah.
underneath everything that just doesn't have to get in the way, even though it's a really long delay. Do you want some overdrive, Dan?
That'd be lovely. Thank
Okay.
you.
Let's try that then.
And in that sense, it almost does the same job as a reverb. It's not getting in the way of anything,
Yeah.
but there's this lovely sort of almost billowy platform that you're playing over.
Yeah. A lot of people, when they get their first delay pedals, and I was definitely in this camp, you put all the pedals, you put all the knobs somewhere in the middle because it seems about right, a sensible place to start, and it's this ungodly mess. You can't deal with it. Our tip is turn that delay volume down, the mix volume, it might be called mix on some pedals. Turn it down so it's almost imperceptible. And you'll think, where is it? Turn it off and you'll hear where it went.
Yeah.
The other great thing about delay is self-oscillation. Daniel?
And who wouldn't want a bit of that?
Because we all need a bit of that in our life. What's happening there?
So, with the repeats all the way up, what's happening is the output of the delay gets fed back into the input. And then basically with enough of the repeats, it just ends up having this big cyclical thing. And it's just this beautiful, heavenly noise.
And it's great. And quite often if you see an experimental guitar player down on their knees messing about with their delay pedal, that's what they're doing. And you get all that whacked out psychedelic stuff.
Really great.
It's totally brilliant. Okay, delay from short slapbacks and short echoes all the way up to long delays that you can use rhythmically. Got to be one of the first pedals you choose, hasn't it?
Yeah. So the rhythmical use of delay is really interesting. Talking about someone like The Edge, who will use the delay time as a part of the rhythm of what they do. So let's set up a what a lot of people refer to as a dotted eighth thing. Okay, so let's find the time. Let's go.
Sound of ages.
It's a really wonderful way to add texture and flavour to a really simple rhythmical part.
It can be tricky to find that dotted 8 rhythm. We've done videos on that in the past. If you search back through our delay videos, you can find something that explains it. The good news is quite a few modern delay pedals have a dotted 8th setting. So if your music is 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you use the tap tempo, which sets the delay time, but you set it to dotted 8th, it will make it a dotted 8th for you. So it takes all the guesswork out of it.
Happy days.
Really great fun playing with that. Okay, our last pedal that we're going to choose for your first 3 effects pedals is Tremolo.
So the tremolo is really interesting in that it modulates the amplitude, which means it changes the volume. So the sound will be like so as opposed to so that's the amplitude as opposed to which is the pitch.
Yeah.
So things like chorus and flanger modulate the pitch. And phaser, we've got phasings going on, but the tremolo is really interesting because it's basically having a volume control, turning it up and down.
Yeah. It appeared in amplifiers early days. Certainly from the late 50s and then through the 60s, it was in quite a lot of amps, not least this one.
Yeah.
So you might not need a tremolo pedal because you might already have it in your amp. But if you don't, let's hear the sound of tremolo. Now, tremolo can be, broadly speaking, you can do other things, but broadly speaking, it can be fast or slow and soft or hard. Let's hear it. Go for it, Dan.
That little bit of movement that it gives you is so powerful.
Yeah.
That's really great.
The other thing that you can vary on most tremolo pedals is the shape of the volume up and down. We won't get into that today, but basically whether it puts the volume up and down smoothly or very sharply.
Yeah.
And that's just a way of affecting the waveform of the volume up and
But
down.
here, I'll just switch between the two on the same.
We will get into that
Here
today.
we go.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Yeah, when you get your first tremolo pedal, you're like, wow, where on earth do I use this? And the more music you listen to, you'll be like, aha,
Yeah.
tremolo.
Yeah.
And used in conjunction with the other two, you can just get some great textures going.
Yeah.
Because I think what we're looking for in our guitar effects pedals is just that bit of inspiration. The thing that takes your playing from this place to that place because you've been inspired by the sound you're listening to.
It's really important to note that these sounds will lead you to places that you wouldn't have gone before, So, get these things dialed in right. I think this is why so many of us have gone down these rabbit holes because these sounds can be so inspiring.
Let's combine them up then and hear some of the pedals together, see what we come up with.
Lovely.
Awesome, there you go. Full gamut.
Lots of fun to be had.
50s fun right through to almost metal.
Oh, almost metal.
Petal.
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 Those are
Heavy petal.
So if you're getting started in this, a gain stage, a time-based effect, and a modulation is a really, really great way to go. And we would encourage you to experiment with overdrive, delay, and tremolo. Next week, it's going to be your next three pedals will get a little bit more experimental, and we'll introduce some other flavors to spice things up a bit.
Indeed. So thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate it. Please subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. And a massive thank you to anyone that's gone to thatpedalshowstore.com and grabbed some merch, some t-shirts and hats and strings and pedals, and it's all there. It's good stuff.
It's the main way we fund this show. Please also go to thatpedalshop.com in the US. If you're in the US and you want to buy some pedals and stuff, go there. It's a jolly nice place to be.
Indeed. A massive thank you to our preferred retailers in the UK and Europe is
Anderson's Music of Guildford in Surrey.
Yes, and our dear friends in Australia.
Would be Pedal Empire of Brisbane in Queensland.
Yes, and finally, a massive thank you to our patrons on Patreon. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Okay, until next week then, we get a bit more experimental.
Indeed. Have a great day. We'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.